want to be respectful of everybody's time. Good morning, this is Bob Luz with the Massachusetts Restaurant Association. I appreciate everybody coming in and giving some time here this morning. I'm most appreciative of three individuals here that are going to help us through today. Undersecretary Mark Filla from the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, Larry Andrews, President of Massachusetts Growth Capital, and Angela Mealy, I think I pronounced that correct, Senior Credit Officer with Massachusetts Growth Capital. And they're really the experts here, and they're going to say a few introductory words maybe, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. And we've received a number of questions that have come in from some folks that are unable to make it today. What we will ask you to do is any questions that you have, please put them in the Q&A, and Steve Clark from our office will facilitate those with everyone. And I know, Larry, I know you have been invited to participate in the governor's press conference today, so I know you're going to have to scoot right before 11 anyway. So with that, let me just hand it off to the team here, and again, my appreciation for you being here today.
Well, Bob, thank you for making the time, and thank you everyone for being here. I think I'll keep our introductory remarks brief, and then would love to get into Q&A in the heart of the program. I'd say that just broadly speaking, we continue to battle COVID across the Commonwealth. We're in a modified phase 3, step 1 environment right now, as everyone knows. That comes with all sorts of sector-specific protocols, and all those details can always be found at mass.gov/reopening. And of course, we're in the process of rolling out the vaccine to the state. We're currently in phase 1, which is largely healthcare workers, first responders, long-term care facilities, but we'll be moving through the vaccine rollout. And of course, the more vaccines that get to people, into people's arms and protects us, the better off we are. And folks can look at mass.gov/vaccine for all the vaccine stuff. But we're really here to talk about the sector-specific relief grant program that MGCC is administering. And the team is here to answer questions about it. It's part of a $668 million program that's set up to help small businesses and target small businesses particularly impacted by COVID and all that's come with COVID. And of course, there are specific sectors that we're targeting, and restaurants, bars, caterers, and food trucks are listed as one of those primary sectors and focus sectors. I'd really encourage everyone on the phone to get an application in. And of course, please spread the word to other members of the association and just your friends in the industry. This is a really important program, and it's geared towards helping businesses like yours. So maybe with that, we could open it up for questions. But again, we really are hoping that folks take advantage of the program. Businesses can get up to $75,000 in grant money, so it's not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. And the website empoweringsmallbusiness.org, which MGCC runs, has all the details of the program. But with that, maybe Bob and Steve, we can do some Q&A, and looking forward to answering questions with Larry and Angela.
So again, I'd ask anybody that has questions to queue it up in into the Q&A and for Steve to work on. And Steve, I know you've received a number of them in advance of this, so why don't you start off with some of these?
So let's start off with a couple of easy ones. When will applicants find out if they will receive the grant?
Sure, I can take that one because it's less technical, and I'll let others jump in on more technical things. So the grant program technically closes tomorrow, the 15th. We anticipate taking about 2 weeks to sort through all the applications. So the exact timing of when people will find out if they get an award is a little bit fluid, but we're hoping that people can start to get the good news in the first 2 weeks of February. So we're trying to turn around and get money in people's hands just as quick as we can. It'll depend a little bit on volume, and of course, how accurate people are in uploading the right paperwork and materials and making sure their applications are complete. But February is the goal.
Mark, along that point, before you go, Steve, let me ask a question that has come up to me. I think that is related there. So if I had applied to the first go round earlier, should I know by now whether I received a grant out of that piece, or are there still some that are pending within that first tranche?
There are still, oh, go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, not yet. In fact, what's announcing today is another over 4,000 grant applications have been approved. We're looking now at the sector-specific industries within the sort of the first round, which was the under 50 and under 5. Some of those actually, there's a number that are being, people have heard, but it'll be over the next couple weeks, whether you've heard or not. If you have already applied in the under 5 or the under 50, you don't have to apply again. We will be looking at those applications and funding as many of those as we can. And then obviously we'll start looking at these sector-specific loan program as well.
Just to put
Larry,
just to put a fine point on that, there are a group of people who applied in round 1 who have not heard yet and are still under consideration. So you might still get good news out of the first round of applications. We're working through that backlog as quick as we can.
If they log in where they submitted their application, it would say application still pending, or if it needed additional criteria to be submitted, that would be indicated in their account, correct?
Yes, as well as if they were awarded, we sent out a round of award letters yesterday. Those will be in their submittable accounts as well.
Okay. We've had a number of questions around the certificate of good standing and the turnaround time to receive the certificate of good standing. If it hasn't been received by tomorrow, should I still submit my application without it and then submit my certificate of good standing when it arrives, or what's the process going to look like for outstanding certificate of good standing that haven't arrived yet?
Right. They can apply, they can submit their application and forward their certificate of good standing after the fact. But to underscore what Undersecretary Fuller just said, we do want to get these all out and funded by February. So they should not delay applying and getting those uploaded as soon as possible.
So just to be clear on that, it's different than the last program. You can apply with your certificate of good standing pending, but prior to funding, we will need that in order to award the money.
And does that need to be original gold seal, raised gold seal, or is a black and white copy, does that suffice?
Yeah, black and white copies have been accepted, yes.
Okay, thank you.
As long as it's, within the last 12 months of issuance.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a time frame on how long a business will have to spend the grant on approved expenses?
There currently isn't a set timeline, but we would expect people to spend the money quickly. This is meant to help keep the lights on and pay for sort of fixed costs associated with running the business. So there isn't a timeline formally established yet, but we expect businesses to spend the money quickly to address immediate needs.
I would agree with Mark. The one thing that you just have to be careful of in anything that you're, especially if you're thinking about PPP, and I'll use this, you can apply for the sector-specific loan program as well as the new round of PPP. Part of what the federal government hammers in is that there cannot be a duplication of benefits. So if you're paying December rent, January rent with the MGCC grant, and then you apply for PPP for January rent for the same expenses, that is not allowed. So you just have to be sure that you're separating your expenses and make sure that they're not ending up in dual applications. And
the good news is, and we had a webinar yesterday on on the latest stimulus plan. The good news is that the allowable expenses in this round are far more broad than they were the last time. So it really should be fairly easy to segregate those and make sure there's not duplication. So, but it does take coordination, no question about it. Thank you, Larry.
And actually, on that same question on allowable expenses, are insurance and property tax bills allowed to be paid with the grant money?
Insurance, we've been allowing insurance and property tax. Angela, do you know the answer?
No, I believe no on property taxes, and yes on business-related insurance. We can classify that, I think, under utilities as an operating expense.
Okay. And then, will a business be required to prove afterwards how the grant was spent, and what should a business consider keeping track of to justify that expense? Is it a canceled check? Is it a canceled bill? Is it a payroll journal? What type of documentation is on the back end of receiving this grant?
Everything you just said.
Yeah,
I would save it
okay.
all.
Yeah, so this is these are state and federal funds. We do not anticipate looking at an audit of each grantee. However, it's pretty clear when you sign your award letter and documentation that you have to maintain records around these grants. And so, in fact, if there is an audit, whether it be a federal or state audit, you just want to have that stuff available and ready to show if, in fact, people ask.
So,
how about
one
funds that have been previously paid with personal funds before, waiting for this grant to come in? Are you allowed to retroactively pay back, I guess, yourself, if you had paid approved expenses waiting for the grant to come in? For example, December rent that was due due 12/1, would you be able to use the grant as it comes in for that expense?
Yes. Yep. As long as it's a reimbursement of expense, whatever pocket it came from, as long as it's for the business and it's for business purposes, then it can reimburse for those expenses.
And how far back can that go, Larry?
It has to be within the, I think it's March 10th is when I think the emergency was declared. So
so it can go all the way back. Okay.
yeah.
March.
I mean, there's some, Bob, that people have not gotten any kind of aid, and obviously this is a great opportunity for them to, take advantage of that.
Yeah, one of the learnings we had from the earlier stimulus plan, which I think it's still applicable here, is if I get a $75,000 award, or if I have several units and I end up getting a little bit more, maybe if I'm lucky enough, set up a separate checking account so that you know exactly which ones are paid out of there. You have it totally segregated, and I think that's applicable here as well. So
yeah, and I would, yes, exactly, especially on PPP, but this as well is, we believe, and it should be, that businesses sort of cobble together a number of grant programs in order to, move forward. And so, making sure that those are sort of separated and available really makes a lot of sense.
Steve, let me jump in. There was a question that came in on the chat, not the Q&A, so I don't want to lose it here. Let me just throw this out. Hello, I'm a veteran and I own a local tavern. The tavern has been open and established since about 2010. I purchased the tavern in August of 2019 as the previous owner was starting to retire. I kept it operating, same staff, same name, etc. Customers didn't know the difference. We desperately need this grant as we are on our last legs, want to avoid bankruptcy as we have been shut down recently. When I went in to apply for the grant program, it said the business has to be established before 6/30/2020. The business has been established, but the incorporation date of the new legal corporation is 8/4/2019, although I think he might mean 20. can I still qualify for that grant? We're a veteran-owned restaurant.
But I think what's on the website is it has to be established before 6/30/19, not 20.
Okay.
So yes, it sounds like they would be eligible.
No, well, it looks like, I'm sorry. So it's 6/30/19. So if the incorporation date of the new legal corporation was 8/4/19, they would not be eligible?
Yeah, at this point, and again, this is not necessarily going to hit all, every bucket that is really hurting at this point. And those are one of those buckets right now that, we're looking at, those that sort of are either incorporated after 6/30/19. Again, because we were looking at sort of limited resources and basically trying to figure out exactly what people were using the money for and using those tax returns, that was the date. My guess is we get further into tax return season and we don't know yet sort of what the next wave would be, but at this point it would be excluded.
Okay. All right, Steve, I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, if you've already received the first round of grants, are you automatically disqualified from receiving a second sector-specific grant?
Yes, it currently, again, because the money is somewhat scarce, we're trying to make sure that people that have not received any kind of state grant get access to it first. And so what we've at this point have looked at is that if you've received state grants prior, then you would not be considered for additional awards under the sector-specific grant.
Okay, and then on a similar accounting question that we had earlier, would you recommend to set up a separate account to better track expenses that are being paid for with the grant funds, or is it solely based on 3 months according to the 2019 tax returns?
It's really up to you. I mean, I would, but it's really up to the business and how they run their. Obviously, I would talk to my accounting helps to make sure that happens. If I could ask my own question, we hear a lot about, are these grants taxable? And am I going to have to pay taxes on it? And it's similar to your question. Your question is, I would assume yes. Again, we're not the taxing authority, and my guess is the IRS and the state. That may be another conversation, but I would reserve some amount for taxes in the future. But again, depending on your tax situation and how you're doing, you may not be paying taxes anyways. But I would assume that these are taxable income.
And I think your tax professional would probably recommend keeping detailed records anyway for the purposes of PPP and employee retention tax credits and Massachusetts grants, because you want to be able to show a clear delineation from where you're expending those funds versus where you're spending other funds. So I think that's probably a good idea to keep detailed accounting information with any money you're receiving from a government process. Moving on back into pre-submitted questions. If a corporation has 4 restaurants, can they submit one application for each restaurant, or do they need to submit multiple applications for that entity? And then do you need to upload your food business certificate for each restaurant? Follow-up question to that before you answer that is, similar to the certificate of good standing, certain food business permits aren't available because cities and town halls are closed. Is that a similar process where the recommendation is to submit the application and then as soon as you can get the permit to submit it? Or would a previously expired permit from the previous year suffice for now?
Andrew, you want to take the multiple locations first?
Sure. So We do see lots of restaurant groups that have a holding company with multiple restaurants underneath them. The way the program is set up right now, it's one grant for one legal business entity, i.e. taxpayer ID. So if you got a grant or you're applying for a grant for your general holding company, those tax returns should be affixed to your application. If you apply for your holding company and then you're putting one of your operating entities in there, we're not able to delineate from the combined tax return those expenses. So the short answer is, and the best rule of thumb to follow is, one tax return, one grant, so that it can be tracked best. So if you have multiple tax returns because you hold multiple corporations under their own ID, then you can apply, but that does not, anyone is encouraged to apply. That doesn't necessitate being awarded.
How about on behalf of a management company? If a management company does administrative duties for more than one restaurant, can that entity apply, or does the restaurant have to be the sole applicant?
Good question. So the management company is the holding company, if you will, or it's just acting on behalf of the restaurant itself to make the application?
That's a good question.
I'm not
well,
clear
because the submitted question has actually asked a follow-up question. They go back to the holding company and they have separate form 1152s, which shows expenses per entity. Are they allowed to apply for that purpose, or does each separate entity again have to be its own separate application?
It should be its own separate application.
Okay. Anonymous viewer, I know you have submitted a number of questions, so please let me know if we have covered everything you have asked. The last one that I would check off from this asker is, how were the level of grants determined?
So the level of grants determined is in the qualification requirements that's on our website, and it's based on it's capped at 3 months of operating expenses for 2019. And part of the reason why we looked at that is just to sort of be a governor, so we're not, we're making sure that it's equally distributed. And so, a very small company is not getting all the money, or a very large company is not getting all the money. And so it's one way in which we can also look at ways, sort of the comparison from last year and this year. As far as, I think your real question is, who gets the money? At this point, we don't know. It's going to be based on the number of applications we get in the sector-specific program. At this point, it is not oversubscribed, and that's why it's really important to get out there and apply now. And then if they're qualified, they give us the information that we can make a determination of an award. They will receive an award. So that's why right now, if you're a restaurant, please apply.
And actually, a follow-up question on the 2019 level of expenses, and bear with me as I work through this question. But if 3 months of expenses on the 2019 is less than what 3 months of expenses in 2020, because the business has fallen behind on bills, but it's still less than the maximum amount of $75,000, can you apply for the maximum?
So one thing just to remember is this is not a income replacement program. This is an expense replacement program. And we are relying on 2019 tax returns, again, as sort of the governor. And so you have to show those expenses, average expenses in 2019. And even though you may have more expenses in 2020, we're only going to go up to what you're actually showing, the average expenses. And so to your question, it would be no.
Okay, a follow-up question on the business certificate question. What's the better course of action? Is it submitting the expired one if the current one is not available, or waiting for the current one to get shipped, to get sent?
I think you should upload your certificate that you have in hand and make a note in your submittable application that you've applied for and are awaiting an updated certificate. So the reviewers can see that. But if it's older, then I'll just continue on. You know, we want to see that it's at least dated, you know, within the last 12 months.
Okay. And a follow-up question on the order of applications. The apps that were in the original program that didn't get funded, are they first in line to get reviewed, or is all application in the new pool kind of being reevaluated separately?
So there's two parts to that question. If you're sector related, sort of single location, you're being reviewed now, and you're actually will be you will be awarded sooner than my guess than the sector related. No guarantees, but basically we are looking at those now, and we actually have one that was funded, a number that was that were actually being announced today or yesterday. And so it's going to be a continuum of awardings. If you have multiple locations and you have filed under multiple locations in the old program, we will also be looking at and moving over those applications for further funding in the sector-related program.
Okay, Larry, I will give you. It's 11 o'clock. I know you have to leave to join the governor. I'll give you the opportunity to step aside now if that works for you, and we'll just continue with the rest of the panelists answering the questions that have come in.
And thank you so much for having us. And you know, please apply. Go to empoweringsmallbusiness.org and get your applications in. Thank you so much.
Larry, do me a favor.
Thanks,
give a shout out to everybody to say, please don't not apply. You know, apply. You know, let them know that that's our recommendation. So
yeah,
thank you very much for all you're doing.
All right, thank you, Bob. Talk to you later.
All right, thank you.
Follow-up question on the business. Follow-up question on the business certificate. What exactly is the business certificate that's required? Is it a liquor license? Is it the common vic? You could just shed a little clarity on that part of the application process.
Either or both is acceptable.
Okay. We had a follow-up question going back to the insurance question on an allowable expense. If someone has been paying their insurance premium monthly, are they allowed to pay the yearly? Their funds have been so thin, they've been paying monthly. Would they be allowed to pay their yearly insurance premium?
Well, again, the funds that are awarded are finite based on your 2019 3 months expenses. So how you use it, you know, we're not overseeing that. You can ask for that in the reimbursement. If there's enough funds to cover your annual premium and that's how you choose to use it, you put that in your application as your requested use of funds.
Okay. To clarify, one FEIN number with 2 restaurant locations, that's allowed. Is that one application or 2?
One EIN number?
Yes.
One application.
One EIN, one application. One EIN with 2 restaurant locations is one application.
But it's only eligible for.
And presumably one award, correct?
Yes.
Correct. That's the tricky part of this. You have to have an individual, depending on how you've structured your business, and how you structured your business is will impact how many awards you could potentially get. So in that situation, you'd be able to apply once for up to $75,000.
But again, if I have that section, that form 1152 that breaks out expenses by business unit, would that open me up to multiple possible awards, Angela?
If it's one taxpayer ID, so think of it this way, one taxpayer ID, one award, one application.
Okay.
And that will do it for pre-submitted questions. If you're an attendee and I did not get your question, I'll give you a couple minutes to send it in right now, or a couple seconds, as I know people are typing in questions. But that should wrap up the questions that we have in the queue for the moment.
Give everybody a minute here, just to, if there's any last minute questions, and while you're thinking about that and writing them down, if not. Just a reminder, and I just said it to Larry before he left. I urge you and everybody else that you can talk to, please go out and let people know they need to apply. All right, because if you don't apply, you can't get into the game here. And you can figure it out if there's questions or problems afterwards, or you're not sure you should take it for whatever reason. Deal with it afterwards. But for right now, applications have to be in by close of business tomorrow. So please apply. And again, you can always talk with the folks over at Massachusetts Growth Capital Corporation afterwards, and make decisions then. But please apply if you would. So.
And actually, while we're, I have one question that we can talk about is how soon after receiving notification of an award will you get funded?
Question. We're trying to do these in large batches, and we hope to be, primarily done mid to late February.
Yeah, so once you get the award, it kicks off a little bit of an administration process where we have to confirm banking details and that type of thing. So it depends a little bit on how quick people are in exchanging the information, but the goal is to get people the funding just as soon as possible. So. The turnaround time is top of mind for us, so we're trying to get people awarded and then funded just as quick as we can.
If the application is missing any info, is the opportunity presented to correct it, or does it just get kicked out automatically? What happens with an application that might be missing some information?
So at this time, we are keeping the cures, if you will, to the certificates of good standing. And that's just so that the reason for that is so that we can expedite the monies to the street as quickly as possible. And we've learned through the prior grant programs that sort of was the bottleneck on getting these monies out. So up to the time that you're able to get us that award, that certificate of good standing, we will fund. But again, the idea is that we're kind of done with funding no later than the end of February.
And then, I'll try to answer this question, and you may have a different answer, but somewhat people are saying if there's questions come up later in the day, is there a resource that's available to them? I do think most of the questions are on the website and in the criteria for grant awardings and how it will be administered. So I think any questions can be directed right to the application website in terms of answering some of those questions. Some of them are more nuanced and what have you. But that would be MRA's recommendation, is to look at the application website and look at the restrictions and criteria that's posted, because that's pretty much what's going to guide what MGCC does.
Exactly. We have a dedicated mailbox, electronic mailbox that is being manned, almost around the clock, as well as phone lines, phone messages being returned. So we're doing our best to get to everyone.
And we have said many times, we know the MGCC is a small but mighty staff. So we know that they are doing all that they can to navigate this grant process and going through tens of thousands of applications. So
Yes.
we applaud what you are doing from our side.
Yeah, I would definitely spend a little time on the website. It seems like there's a lot there, but it's laid out in a very accessible way, and the paperwork required it's actually, as grant programs grow, it's not particularly onerous in terms of paperwork. We tried to strip it down just to the things we absolutely had to have. So I would just encourage you, when it says like complete business tax return, don't just submit the first page, send in everything. When in doubt, include it in your upload, so you don't get to a point later on where we say, well, gee, you only did one page and we needed all 5. So please read it carefully and submit the right type of thing. That's where we tend to have the biggest stumbling blocks. If people, mistakenly upload an apple pie recipe opposed to their 2019 tax return, you can't help it. So just be mindful as you go through it.
Okay, we're at 35 minutes, and we did say that this would be a quick Q&A. So I want to thank all the panelists for participating today, and I'll turn it back over to Bob to close us out. Oh, sorry. As I try to break it up, one quick question came in. How can we tell if our app is in the review process?
When you sign back into your submittable account, it will say pending review. And you will get a confirmation as soon as you hit the submit button as well that your application has been successfully received.
Okay, very good, thank you. And then I'll ask one last question and then sign off. And I don't think this was answered. If it was, I apologize. So when when this new tranche comes through and approvals start, will they come out all at once, or will it trickle out, some at a time? Just because I know that when that first tranche comes out, if I don't get called, if I don't know, we'll get hit with about 20,000 calls. So maybe not that many, but we'll get hit with 1,000 calls. Let's just say.
I think it's going to depend a little bit on how much volume we have coming in.
Okay.
We've got thousands of applications, and so we'll try to let us follow up with you. My guess is we'll probably have to do it in tranches again.
I'm assuming that as well. Yeah.
But we will have we've sort of given ourselves some time here to go through and review it. And the more complete applications we have with the correct information, the bigger that first tranche can be. And our goal is to fund them all as fast as we can. So if you're in a priority category and you've uploaded the correct information, you'll be in good shape. But let us follow up with you, Bob, as we get a better sense of what the volume looks like. Because like all these things, there are a lot of people who turn in their homework 1 minute before their deadline and the assignments due. So we'll have to see what the next 36 hours hold. Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I do want to thank you, Undersecretary Fuller and Angela, and of course Larry, who's left us now for TV stardom with the governor and lieutenant governor. Appreciate all the work you're doing. Appreciate all the effort. And like Steve said, certainly over at Mass Growth Capital, we know it's a small workforce doing God's work right now, and our industry appreciates it, and we do appreciate all the assistance that's out there and trying to help us get to the other side. So thank you for taking the time, and please let us know whatever we can do as we go forward. And I know all the restaurateurs that are in process and still to come in over the next 36 hours do really appreciate it. So.
Well, thank Bob and Steve. Thank you for having us, and thank you for all your advocacy and partnership throughout here. It's a lot of challenging issues, but you've been an incredible partner and advocates for your restaurants and your community. So thank you again, and looking forward to getting as many restaurants as we possibly can, some great grant funding here as we continue to weather the storm.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Get them in.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.